Right, Mr. Otway here in his office, helping you with some of the stuff for your homework. So all the factors that you have to consider in terms of what had the biggest impact on law and order in that period, they're all on here. They are something very similar. I think the one that's a bit different to what's on your sheet is the media, but there's no harm in putting that because it's fairly important. I'm going to go through them one by one, but I'm going to try and be as quick and as clear as I can. So travel had the biggest impact in terms of the four that we've looked at. It had the biggest impact on highwaymen because travel was something that had developed during this period. There was better roads, people moved around a lot more, and this meant there was more opportunity for people to be robbed whilst travelling. So if travel increases, crime involving travel will also increase, and therefore that's where we get highwaymen from. Horses were cheaper as well, of course, which is links to travel, and also highwaymen needed a horse. Here we go. Attitudes, beliefs and values. Social crime is linked to this. We talked about in lesson about piracy and how we've all committed a crime at some point in our lives just by watching a pirated movie, perhaps, or looking at a stream of sport on the internet. Well, social norms, attitudes, the way people believe or things people believe about crimes affects the crime themselves. So most people thought that poaching laws were unfair and were wrong. And also, if you are starving, struggling to make ends meet, killing a rabbit, people thought, why? Nobody's going to miss a rabbit. Why? That doesn't matter. I'll kill a rabbit and I'll sell it or I'll eat it myself. So attitudes towards that was, in that sort of way. But also smuggling. People's attitudes were that smuggling wasn't so bad. Also, people's attitudes were that I'm getting it cheaper if I'm buying it off the smugglers. And that includes wealthy and poor people. So this is why a lot of the stuff was transported to London to be sold to the wealthier people, to avoid the taxes from imports. So people thought smuggling and poaching weren't so bad. Wealth and poverty has a lot to do with this, especially in terms of poaching, smuggling. As we've said, people could get things cheaper. Remember, in terms of poaching, the wealthy, people who had land over £100 a year, that was worth over £100 a year, they were allowed to hunt. But the poor, they were not allowed to hunt. It became known as poaching. And with smuggling, the people could earn 7 times the amount a labourer would earn from one night of smuggling. So for poor people, smuggling was certainly a way to get by. And then with the Tolpuddle martyrs, the wealthy people wanted to keep power. They didn't want the poor people to rise up and take the power. They had looked at what had happened in France in the French Revolution when the people in power, the wealthy people in power, had been overthrown. They didn't want that to happen in Britain. So the reason why the Tolpuddle martyrs got such harsh sentences was because the wealthy people wanted to hang on to power. Over here, urbanisation is linked with travel. In this period, more people went to live in the cities and towns. There was more trade between cities and towns, more things travelling between cities and towns, more people going to cities and towns because they were bigger, because there was more urbanisation. That's what urbanisation is, people going to move to and live in towns. And as a result of this, it leads to the highwayman thing. I guess you could also say that smugglers had people to sell to more easily. There's huge numbers of people living in relatively small areas. What a town and city is, it's a huge, densely populated place. So it gave the smugglers a market to work in. Science and technology. Well, I guess in this sense, in terms of the travelling, the roads improved. In terms of the smuggling, well, that kind of links to travel as well, the science and technology, because the ships had improved, so it was easier to travel things from abroad over long distances and then get them to the cities to sell them. But science and technology, it's not really kicked in yet. Apart from maybe it is the science and technology of the factories, which is creating these factories, which draws people to come and work in them. Where are the factories? In the cities. But yeah, in terms of those specific 4 crimes we've looked at, not a big influence down here. Now, this is clearly linked to the French Revolution, what we've said up here about the Tolpuddle martyrs. Who was in charge of government? Wealthy people. The government made the laws. The government, the lawmakers, were wealthy people. They really wanted to keep these poor people in their place. They wanted to maintain their privileges as wealthy people, and they did not want to give away any of their power. So the fact that the wealthy people wanted to stay wealthy and the wealthy people were also people in government, meant that laws were passed to keep their position, like the poaching laws, like the fact that you would be executed under the Black Act if you were caught in a hunting area with a knife. That was to keep these poor people in their position, maintain the hunting rights of the wealthier people. The Tolpuddle martyrs, well, again, that's kind of a repetition, but the government was overthrown in France by people who weren't quite as wealthy, by people who were writing against certain things. The government in Britain saw what was going on there and thought, oh, flipping heck, we don't want that to happen here, oh no, jolly no, no, no. So they were willing to do things like really punish those Tolpuddle martyrs really harshly. Even change the law, remember. They changed the law to make swearing oaths in secret illegal for everyone and not just sailors. That was so that they could have a reason to punish the Tolpuddle martyrs. They changed that law after the Tolpuddle martyrs had sworn something in secret. So it wasn't illegal when they did it, yet they still got punished. This was the government taking advantage of their position as lawmakers to make sure the poor people are kept in their place. Individuals, well, you probably have written about today different people like the Duke of Richmond who tried to tackle smuggling, didn't really have a big impact, and individual smugglers. But actually individuals, generally, if you're talking about the people whose names we don't know, it's their attitudes and beliefs. Individuals often chose to take part in these social crimes. And individual people tackling these crimes, they didn't have a big influence. However, what you could say individuals is in terms of named individuals is the specific highwaymen that helped to make the highwaymen so romanticised in the imagination of the public, give them that such a positive image even though they were criminals. People like Duval, who we learnt about. Church and religion. Now that had a huge impact in the Middle Ages and the early modern period. Not really a big impact in this one. The influence of the church and religion was waning, you would say. W-A-N-I-N-G. It was on the decline. It was reducing. And finally, the media, linking to highwaymen and individuals, the highwayman was seen as this glamorous sort of criminal who were dashing, and women cried when they were executed. Like when Duval was executed, there was women crying. It was like a bit of a pin-up for them. There goes the bell. It was the media, and linked to science and technology.